Hi everyone, this is Ashwini. Welcome to CKA Cert Hands-On channel. The purpose of my channel is to get people who want to give CKA 2025 exam get started on their hands-on practicing journey once they finish the formal course of CKA and have a basic understanding of Kubernetes concepts. This creates the depth in your understanding of each concept and helps you crack CKA exam. CKA exam consists of 5 different categories. Currently we are in the troubleshooting category, which carries 30% in the CKA exam. I have a playlist for each category. So we have storage, workloads and scheduling, servicing and networking, troubleshooting, and cluster architecture, installation and configuration. I have already 3 playlists for storage, troubleshooting and services and networking. And I'll be creating the playlist for the rest of the 2 categories as well. Now the links for the playlists are provided in every video. With that introduction, let's get started with today's video. This is the 19th video in troubleshooting series, and today we are talking about RBAC authorization. Now if you look at these are the changes to the certified Kubernetes administrator, and this is as of Feb 18, 2025. So if you see here, we have in cluster architecture, installation and configuration, we have role-based access control that is part of architecture, installation and configuration, but currently that is a concept that you need to understand, but it can come up in troubleshooting as well. So nevertheless, we will try to revise this concept, or if you haven't accessed it at all before, it's a good opportunity to just go back to the documentation and understand what exactly RBAC is and how we can use some of that knowledge to troubleshoot and fix the problem that we have in the scenario. So RBAC is a method of regulating access to a computer or network resources based on the roles of individual users within your organization. It is basically, if you think of it, an authorization, but a configuration. Everything has a configuration in. If you see, it's an authorizer, and the type is RBAC. And there are it's the RBAC API. It has 4 kinds of Kubernetes objects. We have role, cluster role, RoleBinding, and cluster RoleBinding. So even though it looks like there are a lot of terms to it, it is actually quite easy if you understand each of this, why they are called that, why they are used where. So think of it as a role is something that you would define in a particular namespace. A cluster role is something that is a non-namespace resource. So you have to, while creating the role, you'll have to specify the namespace it belongs in, whereas a cluster role, by contrast, is it doesn't belong to any particular namespace, and it is not namespaced, and it is a cluster. It is the scope of it is a cluster, whole cluster. The resources have different names, role and cluster role, because a Kubernetes object always has to be either namespaced or not namespaced. It can't be both. So cluster roles have several uses. You can use cluster role to define permissions on namespaced resources and be granted within individual namespaces. So you can look through what are these the use cases of the cluster roles, and I will be skipping this, and I'll move on to the RoleBinding, and then we will look at these examples too, and then we'll go back to solving our problem. So a RoleBinding grants the permissions defined in a role to a user or a set of user. So it's basically, think of it, if you either create a role or RoleBinding. Now the role or cluster role will actually have like the permissions. What are the permissions, and on what resources are you going to use those permissions. So if you think of it, if you look at this particular role here, it says verbs get watch lists and resources are pods. So this role has the permissions to get pods, watch pods, and list pods. Similarly, the cluster roles. Okay, the only thing is you have to provide a namespace, and here you don't have to provide the namespace; they are omitted. And same thing here, there are resources and verbs. Okay, that's a role, and so basically a role is permissions on resources, and a role binding is something that you will use that role, that permission, and then you will bind it to something else, a user or a group or a service account. And that's what, so it's a user, group, or service account. So it'll just be clear with the example. So the role binding, it is a kind role binding. The name is read pods, and it is using the pod reader role, and it is binding that role to user Jane. That's it. That is, so you have role binding, which is in the namespace, and then you have I think you should have a cluster role binding that doesn't have any namespaces. So it is actually quite easy to understand once you understand these four API objects concepts. So let's go back to our problem and try to understand it. So it says you have a service account named dev.sa, a role named dev.role.CKA, and a role binding named dev.role.binding.CKA. We're trying to create list and get the pods and get the pods and services. However, the service account is not able to perform these operations. Fix this issue. So we have a service account. It's just a name of the service account. They just not a Kubernetes resource. So we will try to get what are the permissions for get. We'll describe it. Describe the role dev role CKA. Yeah, you can see here the permissions are get secrets, which is not the permissions that are defined here. We are trying to create list and get the pods and services, and okay, so that is a problem with role. We'll fix that. We will also check if there is any problem with the role binding. No hyphen in this, so we'll just describe it. So role binding, okay, subjects, it's kind dev SA is the name of the service account, and that it is binding it to a role dev role CKA. So the role binding seems fine, so we will just edit the role and update the permissions. First, get is there, so we'll leave the get as it is, and along with that we have list and create as well. We'll add those, and we don't have the resources secrets. It's pods and services. We'll add pods and services. We'll try to describe the role again. So it is get, list, create, you can see, but on pods and services. Now we have I think that's it. Permissions are updated. And the role binding is correct, so we will now just check. Yeah, the validation is successful, so it's all about fixing the permissions of the role here. This is how you troubleshoot roles slash cluster roles and role binding slash cluster role bindings. Please refer to RBAC documentation in Kubernetes. And if you think my videos are helpful, please do subscribe to my channel. Also, like and share my videos. I will be providing the KillerCoda link and the required documentation links in the description of the video. I will also be sharing my troubleshooting, networking, and storage playlists in the description of every video. Let me know if you have any comments and feedback or any particular content that you are looking to learn. I will try to put those videos if you want specifically. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, happy learning. Bye.